Oh yeah. Yeah, that 남준 내시 제고서 산제 최저 맛이다. 점도 더 샘제니 what
So we just begin as normal, reciting the refuge and bodhisattva prayer.
어다 고는 야부 죄전 다 간제 지금 낭배 취를 줘다 먼저도 점도 샘마세. 대과 침배 취를 줘다 먼저도 아니 샘제게 샘마세 인자. 근데 시부지 당가서 가소래. 가소래. 대과 침배 취 지금 지금 점도 샘제니 다 간제 지금 가소래. 다 지금 취 가소래 다 간제 지금 고주에다 람라라비에다 같이 뭐 용예게 다 간제 지금 가소래다 저 자와 소설에도 그래도 어디디 개침부 지게 고롱 죄전 어디든 저 점프 선제 제자 어디는 저
So just remind ourselves to really be careful to set a very sincere and good motivation to begin with. As the prayer says, like to enter into the Buddhist teachings is through taking refuge. Entering into the Mahayana ideal is through developing the mind of enlightenment itself. So this prayer encapsulates both those goals, and for us to really be determined, we'll really live up to the ideals as set forth in the Mahayana tradition, and to enter into that with a good spirit, good beginning, train on the path, and aim to perfect those trainings to perfect the state of enlightenment itself. So it's important to maybe set our motivation very, very determinedly with great enthusiasm and sincerity.
식룡룡 지다 되 짜침부 되가 저도 식룡룡 산제가 최 용수가 되나 되대도 다디 아니 식마룡룡 식되네 다 식된데 저 손랑게 돼 아니 배 산님이 잡아다 간제 저거 조저 반대 아디샤 조저 반대 아디샤게 딱 저거 산제가 때뭐 용수 잡아 저 되게 게 아니 식 쇼로 같이 나올 때 시부 싸시고 시부 저 공득 나도 봐 항사지래도 어떤데 오늘 안데네 저 등가 저 알리 대한 삼로 당도 인데 대한 삼로 당만 식 대한 삼게야 아니 저게 그다 간제 저게 가서데 산제 릭세다 뉴도 아니 저게 산제 땡바다 제 대한 태바 집에 땡바다 제 아니 저게 사줄랑가 전에 산제 고마 도여게 된데가 다 투명게 참자는 여바 인수 아니 식잠 때문에 표현 산님이 잡아와 어떻게 다 대한 삼로 당도는 다 시에 먹어버려 산제가 최 용수가 되나 되대도.
And so to be aware also that within these few words of the refuge bodhisattva prayer is the summary of the entire teachings of the Buddha. And this is come down to us from the tradition of Pandan and Atisha, who kind of summarized all the teachings in these few kind of lines, really. And so they should be regarded as something incredibly sacred, incredibly kind of laden with meaning. And so that to try to reflect on that meaning, to awaken Buddha nature, and to kind of really kind of see that this is something very inspirational for us to be able to train in accordance with all the meaning there. So be no doubt that even though there's very few words, that this is a summary of the entire teachings of the Buddha.
Yeah. Sanje
Chodan Jogi Jonam Law, Jaju Badu Dagi Gapsu, Jagi Cheningi Pei Chokang, Jolam Haju Sange Jopar So, Sanje Chodan Jogi Jonam Law, Jaju Badu Dagi Gapsu, Jagi Cheningi Pei Chokang, Jolam Haju Sange Jopar So, Sanje Chodan Jogi Jonam Law, Jaju Badu Dagi Gapsu, Jagi Cheningi Pei Chokang.
Daya Tang Gate
Paragate
Daya 지가서데 아니 저기 최년바 대 아니 람도 줘야다 아니 람도 받쳐 매바다 최타치 뭐 용해다 다가니시 어떤데 그 제도다 지가서데 제 셰라니 뭐 뒤에 람수요 그래서 다 셰라니 뭐 거라도 된다나요 지다 지금 망부터 말때 이내 먼저 뒤주 통도 주면 돼 매대도 야 这个说的妈妈我说去个千年前的样多些把这的节目我说这到的把这的看的因为我说他就是就通通没都没位置地了哇我的讲现在就我的对面看来现在你们东大的到什么单呢是吧双喜现在就跑去的钱了把双喜死我大感觉大呀大干的巴拉干的不是错浪的脚浪的拖浪过浪米罗浪那边现在个跑的什么双喜死大感觉대먼저 대화 되고 요래 동에 되고 요 말에 대대는 대화 요 말이스 다 대화 가봐 요랬으나 아니 람랄람네 딱 간제 코알링 예바 주네 코아딜 내바이나 대화 요 말에 코알레 타네 예바 주네 년중 그 셈께 자주 셈 년중 그 셈디 년중 그 셈께네 딱 간제 년중 그 셈께 랑 코알 나서 년중 그 셈께 안 시엔 코알란다 소리서 아니 니제 께네 안 될라데네 자주 그 셈께네 아니 솔람 랍 데네 톨람 조람 랍 데네 곰람 랍 데네 데 워드 자다가자 아니 밀로 람라 랍네 다가자 톨람네 제네 사당분에 사주고 봐도 아니 딜 랍네 아타르 밀로 람 랍 그래스 밀로 람 타치 받지 그래스 대 제바이나 다 라시 탐제게 아니 디기리 용그레스 와다 디저 다야타 가데 파라 송가데 포지티 돈다 심베 코네 아니다 미진니고레데 디 삼삼전에 미유 디 삼삼전에 와데잖아 엔 디체다 최년시 지기유 삼삼 와데 공부시네 송예데 개치모 이바 와데 셔
So that when listening or studying the Dharma, that there may be obstacles to our understanding, to our integrating what we have learned into our lives. We can recite often the Heart Sutra is a means of being able to do that, and at the heart of that, the mantra of the Heart Sutra, Tayata Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisattva, which encapsulates the entire path, the 5 trainings of the path of accumulation, the path of preparation, the path of seeing, the path of meditation, and the path of no more learning. And so we begin, through saying here that one can actually do this, one can actually enter into the path, proceed through all the different trainings to attain that state of happiness for oneself and all others. And that beginning with this sense of renunciation, of really seeing the reality of cyclic existence and finding it, this disillusionment with whatever so-called happiness that seems to present itself there, and realizing that it's not for real, and gaining a sense of definite emergence from the cyclic existence that compels us then to really strive to attain the state of liberation. And from that understanding of suffering in relation to ourselves, bringing forth that sense of renunciation, we turn towards all sentient beings and see that they also are in the cyclic existence. And so the notion of compassion, that massive sense of compassion for all sentient beings begins to take root in our minds. And so this is a very, very important, that this kind of is what drives us through these different paths of accumulation, a path of preparation, and the path of no more seeing, and so on, until we can gain that kind of real sense of being able to establish permanent and definite happiness for self and all others. And so it's really exhorting us to take the very essence of this life, and showing that all of this is possible if we can take this essence.
我的是，他的因为因啥，他感觉这个我让做夸巴因为因对，安迪那呢我就对吧我掐掉要的，安迪因啥我让做个这个说的让给米金拿了，他给吧呢，这个马西个跑到，安尼把这个东西拿错去，让来用个要的，安尼让给找，他就旁边比较。找不了是吧？我先把那说把没生钱，但这个生钱所以把人呢说通的，这个东岸没有把这所有没多啊，他对了对呢，安尼个这的，他感觉这的科学去年把钱，他的考了那边的了，的东岸的了马的把的，他的那就他把马家呢这个名三钱呢，安尼搞对呢严重的考了2把钟严重的落给他了，他搞对呢他的顾客的别就当多把钱了。 배주 땅 투바잖아. 어떤데잖아. 배주 땅 투바잖아. 다반제这年中 get up 节，而那年中让考拿出来没说吧？得了，年中 get 不了的呢，而那先考拿出东西来的呢，而那没说吧？你这个，而那你这得 get 上头，但你这 get 上头，而那这个对吧？东西没对吧的，而那没对吧的，让到国内从意思，而那东西给拿完了没说吧？你这个呢，而那东西给点这个，可是的，他东西给点这个，你这。 아니 들라 대화 된도 그 잡아 아니 디다 동네에 대화다 대화다 대화 네 지금 있을 학습계 학습계원도 다 소수 지가 줘도 심지어 탐자시는 심지어 지기야 안 대화 탐자도 봐 동네 탐자들 대화지 제마도 다 세버려 가서는 디 제발라 감다 메바 삼바 발라 내와 지다 와시는 마찬 바이나 제투야 거라 메버려 소수 편바 제바 있네 그 누구 이미 심심버려 하도도 어저 내 당보가 편바 제바 망쳐 내버려 네 가서 어저디 무유기 가서다 피게 감다 tum바데 제신게 요 말와 제 마신도 어떤데 다 되는 산제 공부하거나 아니 배 깨지르네 되자 규민법 민법 저와 제도야 돼 가서는 감다 메바 삼바 내가 차서 집에 지다 와서도 ken거 요 인자 어다 된자 산제 공부하고 다 가서라 다 가자 저 매도 미로와 차대도 어다 된다 다 랑이 되어 있나 다 생기 되어 있나 다 니가 그 타지 마 두발라 산제 고마 또 타면봐 인자 오다 산제 고마 맞좀 지금도 산자가 딱 앉아 저 랑게 가서다 개가 나실라 소베 동네 그디 괜찮네 디 괜찮네 아니 산제 고마 두트 받지 두베가 로켓 받지 소이다 소이 고가 비어 받은 거저 라레 따투 받는 배주 땅투 받이나 아니 소저 미제디 인구도 렌두고 와 어디 공부 시에
So we, at the moment, we are in cyclic existence. We are the denizens of cyclic existence. And so that means that we are those who have desires, you know, we are those with desires. And so when we try to follow these desires and we're very honest about how we set about it, the process, whether it's achieved or not, we can see that this life is one of suffering, in fact, you know, that, you know, what we gain isn't reliable, and often there's so much suffering that has to be gone through to get it, to bring it about. And we can see this not just in relation to ourselves, but to our friends, our relatives, those who we get on with, don't get on with, those who we are neutral towards, indeed all that we know or have interaction with. We can see that they suffer. And there is nobody that does not suffer in cyclic existence. And that therefore we know that cyclic existence is in the nature of suffering. So it kind of like, it's important that we, on the back of this kind of moment of understanding, that we begin to develop that sense of renunciation in relation to cyclic existence. And that, in fact, at every instance of this, of recognition of cyclic existence being in the nature of suffering, or marked by suffering, and that we see it as an opportunity to generate the mind of renunciation. And just as, you know, we find this suffering unbearable, we kind of like have become totally disillusioned with it. So all other sentient beings that are thinking the same, that they find this suffering unbearable, that they are disillusioned with this suffering as well. And so this starts to give us the understanding that brings forth a sense of compassion in relation to all other sentient beings, and that they want happiness and they don't want suffering, but they are bereft of the former, and they are inundated with the latter. And from our point of view, of really developing this sense of wanting to place them into happiness and the causes of happiness, it generates that sense of love for all sentient beings, that affectionate love for all sentient beings, and developing that sense of wanting to remove them from suffering and the causes of suffering. It generates that sense of compassion. And so it's extremely important, you know, for us to be able to think like this, to make this kind of the mode of thought, so that we reach that point of really feeling that I must personally do something about this. I cannot just leave it at the realm of thought, but actually put it into action. But I also realize how limited I am at the moment, that I cannot even do this for one person. And in fact, going into it like I am, like this, is like sometimes creating more harm than good. And so I have to kind of resign myself to kind of seeing that the only state from which I can really act in a very beneficial and accurate and unmistaken way is the state of enlightenment. From the Buddha's point of view, has that understanding, that vast understanding of the varying personalities, dispositions, etc., of all sentient beings, and knowing exactly what is necessary to remove the suffering, place them into happiness, and so on. So I must aim for that state. I see there is no other choice, in fact. This is the only inevitable conclusion that I can come to, that I must attain enlightenment. Why? For the benefit of all sentient beings. And this is something that has to be done. And indeed, you know, this is the way I can fulfill the purpose of all sentient beings, let alone myself. And so that means I must generate this mind of enlightenment. This really genuine, sincere determination to attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings, and to see this as actually taking the very essence of this great opportunity I have in this life.
This samlo tang wada nyam to ane rangi chikasole ta chige mizina lola chige ne na zala sowa kange kante chaba yena ya ane tonglengi mingba chongchene ane chikasole chige rangi ane chikasole kange chaba ti anta kanja kange chete wate ngazo lenyoge shawanche yinba yinsa ane lede nyomonge onge le sabate ne yonte ta dinna che simje sugi ja le nyaba sabate ane ngete go choba sho samsachana migwa tone ane migwa de tone ane u tanna go yene ya tembal tene ane deda 탐제게 다 kanja che le nyaba saba kari yoba yine ta ande bacha다 chaba 나니니 전에 소소 내나서다 강에 가리 요번에 다 대간라 팀수 삼삼체 아니 어떠네 아니 저거 야나 나고 예반에 야테 요번에 마 당데 아니 랑게다 생가마 토마메반에 다가네 생게 세다리야 사바 세 마오발라 사바 집에 아니 저게 개와 근데 줘봐 임바이네 개와 되게야 왜 갑이 남발마 당제네 나잖아. 아니 심제 대다 탄저게 내가 그다 내가 잘라서 강에 가리 요번에 대 시와체. 아니 대 시와체는 대다 탄저 최대에 튕겨를 치네. 아니 대적을 르데네 전에 특별집에 계획 신이도 제와. 아니 다가는 생각 지금 장세 양답에 따와라 소바께네. 아니 사조 랑가 림게도 아니 산제 고마 토베게 네바 켜바체 샤수 삼사워들으셔. 야 우야 텐데 어딘데 전 아니 랑게 강에 쳐봐 되게지. 아니 지금 장주가 생기 냠랭게 아니 가서도 튕겨를 봐 배주 당시 받잖아. 저랬잖아. 아니 랑게 강내 쳐봐대 가서도 다 간제 가서도 다 최집에 튕겨 차주고 와. 잡아도 니제도 장주가 생기에 튕겨 차나 다 딜라 갈 거 그래. 아니 고쳐봐서 차대기로 왔다. 고쳐봐서 차대기로 왔다는데 내게 말아서 강가게 된데서 공부 시작하고 잖아. 어떻게 아니 대체 아니 봐 가서 다 랑게 밀릴려봐도 고쳐봐. 산제기 때마다 제발 고쳐봐. 딱 근데 지금 아니 뉴도 산제 고마토베게 아니 줄어 줘대게 차대기로 왔다. 줘대 차기로 왔다. 되지도 아니 랑게 나와대 고쳐봐. 동네 중마대 고쳐봐 차기로 와. 왔던데 저 공부시에 또 봤나? 아니 지금 가서도 다 미지 돈다 때마 서서 아니 가고 야뭐 총수 삼사진.
And so how does this look in daily life? So we can reflect on this in our daily life and look at the different situations that we find ourselves in, be it, you know, if we're sick or have disease or anything like that, to use the taking and giving practice on the breath is something that is very convenient and very, very essential that we can do. And that here, to kind of like in our when exhaling, when inhaling, we can reflect on all of the sentient beings who have a similar sort of illness, what they're experiencing now, may I be able to inhale it and now into myself, and may it dissolve into the illness that I have myself within. And that in the exhalation, I consider all the virtues I have accumulated, whether in the past, in previous lives, in this life, or even into the future. I dedicate them all, and along with all the imprints of those, to all other sentient beings. And may this arrive within their body-mind continuum, completely cure, pacify all illness or disease that they may have. May they be able to awaken the Buddha nature, meet with a precious human, a teacher, Mahayana teacher, and be able to train on the path and have this great capacity to quickly attain the state of enlightenment. And so in this way, we engage in the bodhicitta practice, the mind of enlightenment practice, and begin to be able to see all these different conditions within life as opportunities for such practice. And so illness, therefore, is transformed into an opportunity to quickly attain the state of enlightenment. And so it's kind of like really to see that all of these situations in life, no matter what it is, even when we encounter problems and difficulties, that they are made meaningful by being able to transform them in this way. And therefore, they are more a situation for rejoicing than anything else.
가스나 강에 쳐봤디 랑게 잠바니제 잠바케 장주가 셈게 산제 고마 토베게 아니 사벤지 튼투바 이나 다 딜레 야가지 가리었다 딜레 야가지 가리어 와 데게 아니 와타 야고 총소 거 최소 내 야고 총소 손은 가와kom네 가와kom 아니 가와곰바디 가와디 똥바테 똥바디 대화테 대통령이 숨이 쉽게 쏘서 땅을 무스타게 요말에 다다 레당보아래 이내 몇바 이제 그 속에 삼로 땅에 아니 그 무엇을 깨를 구조지 되기도 봐.
And so to really see all of these challenging situations that we have, the problems that we have, to be determined to make them meaningful in this way. And so kind of really to see them as the opportunity for us to be able to really nourish that seed of enlightenment, of the mind of enlightenment that we have. And that ideal to attain this enlightenment, to be perfectly beneficial to all sentient beings, what could be better than that? That is the best way we can use this any given situation like that. And so it's really worthwhile, rejoicing and truly rejoicing and being delighted that one is able to use this opportunity of adversity and to transform it into what is the most valuable thing possible. And that this is something that then we rejoice in. We can, from that, bring the contemplation of emptiness bringing forth a sense of bliss, and we can abide in that union of bliss and emptiness. And even if we're only doing this at the level of imagination, it's still extremely precious to be able to do that.
다가 저 문에고라 대동께스가 야 사람들 똑바 토벌내는 게잖아. 얘네 사람 토벌을 내 등에서 당보 뭐가 이제 수고 곰네 아니 남시나 아니 때 남시나 아니 무슨 용토와지 저거 열봐. 무슨 용토와 저거 열봐. 당번에 뭐가 이제 당번에 대동게 아니 배 가서 냠던 토와지나다 아니 내 당보가 저거 열 말이야. 내 당보 나랑 저거 간 제토와지 제토바데 뭐가 이제서 뭐가 이제서 그 삼로 땅 투바지 여바데 거든 여바데 땅 투바 제네 아니 되나 다 되제 소나면데 마 인상 그래서 뭐부 인자도 뭐부 저도 그 때도 내가 마인데 그 주제 림베 초원데 그 주와 되게 저거 여바 인상 그 되게 남시나 아니 무슨 거라 대동게 냠던 투바 좀 물어 왔다데 그내 토벌 레벨 계절때 이래 내 당번에는 뭐 이제 그 속에 봐 곰네 티 곰제네 아니 림베 레 투바 소투고 요래
So this of course practice of the combining of bliss and emptiness is very much associated with the practitioners of a high level. But of course, they weren't always at the high level. They were at the same level as we were. And so they would begin the same way we're beginning, like this, bringing it forth in the sense of just bring it into mind, imagining it, and that we need to do the same. And what they did was simply habituated to that process again and again and again and again and again, and then proceeded along the path so that it is actually very much a kind of a genuine practice for them now. For us as beginners, we see ourselves on the same path, but at an earlier stage in that path. So we need to initiate that, and even using it at the process of imagination. We are aware that this practice of the union of bliss and emptiness is a functioning object. It's an object. Therefore, it is a changeable, and it will change as we habituate more and more to it, such that one time we can really understand this practice for a real.
我的是恐怕是，他感觉整个说，他感觉这个说的，我那是去路中接呢，但接呢，但接的概念是呢，但两年接的吧，但两年接是的，但这个说的两年接个但。 고급 책으로 와. 고급 책으로 다 소소라 가서 코아바 인자 갑리 동네 용거래 갑리 사제게 대화 용거래 다디 사제 대화다 동네다 근데 이렇게 아니 근데 체외 갑라 아니 디 아니 코에 춘이 임바 디 모트베 토네 다디 템보 딱바 템보 매와지 지 인데 아니 다디 동네 중간다 디게 중간다 디게 아니 그러나 라랑이 교다 제불라 때는 중화래 디게 그런가 아니 그 유대는 마주봐라 유대는 마주봐 이제 그 때는 중화 인바에서 들어서 용되게 요래 다 근데 이미 아니 디 괜찮네 디 튕견도 배주다네 아니 랑게 타두게 아니 디지게 요 라제니가 태도게 요 장주가 셈다 단에 지금 라제니가게 아니 타두게 요 아니 가서 군조 장주가 셈다 다간데 don담 장주가 셈니 계에게 튕견을 배주 땅토바 이나 아니 오늘 전에 스마트 오늘 잡으러 와. 스마트 어디 마비 디 스마트 샷 스마트 코아베 자월 스마트 제는 오늘 전에 스마트 차고면 미시 디바 무트는 코알네 유튜브 때는 디 스마트 바로 와. 오늘 전에 이나 다 스마트 오늘 때도 되게 줄을 배주 땅도 봐 이나 다 스마트 오늘 차게 되고 봐. 어떻게 거서 만화와 제네. 아니 그거 남중라 배주 땅도 봐 제네.
So we study and study and study and study and study. What is it all about? It's about being able to practice what we study, to really integrate that. And what does practice mean? So practice means really to see every opportunity to kind of like clarify for ourselves the reality of the situation we're in. So we look at the cyclic existence. We have these instances, experiences of suffering. We even have experiences of the contaminated happiness that's available in cyclic existence. But with the reality of it, we see this constant juxtaposition, suffering, contaminated happiness, and that's all of it is related to cause and conditions. It all arises on the basis of causes and conditions, and none of it can exist in any objectively or has any objective existence. So it's kind of like to really see that. That everything proceeds according to these causes and conditions, and we have to be able to start to edit out our perceptions and experiences in cyclic existence, to be able to isolate those that are conducive conditions for being able to achieve genuine happiness for ourselves and others. And this makes perfect sense. So when we're talking about developing the mind of enlightenment, whether it's the conventional sense of the mind of enlightenment or the ultimate sense of the mind of enlightenment, this is focused on just that, really talking about a definite, stable, ultimate happiness for ourselves and other. And this is a smart way of living our life. This is really taking the essence. So this could be very much distinguished from smart as it's usually considered in cyclic existence, where people are considered smart for the way they are interacting within cyclic existence and so on, and that this is not really smart at all. And so we have to really make the distinction between, what is really smart in terms of who is really determined and working towards establishing genuine happiness, stable happiness for ourselves and others, and who is not. And so it's kind of very important to make that distinction and make it in a non-mistaken way.
그래서 말아서 나발에 되는 대화 침배 취를 매번 요긴지 아니 저기 가서 다 가서 저 돈도 얘기는 진짜도 말아서게 스마트 수증도 오 산계의 자주 써봤으로 초주의 산계의 자주 써봤 되게 스마트 꾸네들다 아니 뒤인도 아니 권하쪽에 말아서 잡서 조사디 아니 연대 심배도나다 아니 뒤 연대 돈에 아니 소소야 딜 라비에게 아니 다가서 dum바다 매바다 dum바다 매바다 다저 로아 빠는 거저 대바지도 당에 대바 이치게 대바 원도게 대바 나야 진짜 중나 삼삼 원도 있겠네 로아 아니 뒤 약보를 샤스 톤 권하서 지단의 약보를 당에 대바 아니 딜 아니 이치겠네 디 나라도 투게 나라도 투게 람라 공부서 산게 와서 어떤 나라도 된 바시 두게 이마 디 고가 당그래 삼상에 똑바 요말 디 이지체 디 연대 통리 이지체 아니 디 연대를 당하게 구바체 아니 뭔데 나 소소야 셈제 탐제도 되게 중나 섬네 딱 간제 가서도 딱 뭔데게 어다 된대 저서 딱 뭐좀 카메 야다 짜서 되라다 코나서 난다한테 가서는 깽에 람도 캐스다 깽에 깽이바 그래서 다 코스파도 뒤균들에 깽이바자 차이니버 직사기서가 지용 거 직사기서가 지용도 아니 깽이바다 람도 캐네 깽이바다 장주고 셈 군소 장주 셈제다 된다 장주 셈제 깨게 튕겨를 배주 당주고 도와 깽이 람도 캐스 가서 몰람 자도다 깽이 람도 캐투가 쇼서 몰람 자고 여봐 다 몰람 잡았자 많이 봐 소소 갑도 잠바다 시신의 손에 갑도 람을 캐투바 제대 어디래 당가라서 카미 야다 다서도 초주의 산제의 자주 선바된 소리 아니 코나서 연대한테 심에 토네 아니 나는 먼저 대바 기구에서 대바의 천지 상황 다외 대바 이치게 대바 뭔도게 대바도 오다 천지 상황지 소토에 돼 이 소토와이나 아니 그 경에 남도 캐투가 연구를 와 어디래
So for us who are Buddhists, who are on the Mahayana vehicle, what counts as smart? For us, it's the Buddha, the enlightened ones, the Bodhisattvas. These are the smart ones. And for us, they are the ones to whom we go for refuge. They are our objects of refuge. We appreciate the qualities that they espouse. And, we have develop our aspirations and our desires to emulate those qualities. We have the pure faith of really seeing goodness for what it is. We have the faith of conviction of saying, yes, I can actually emulate that. I have the capacity to develop those qualities as well. And the manifest faith to see the future that I can be as smart as those bodhisattvas and enlightened beings. And so we have that really developed that sense of conviction of the qualities, to attain a higher rebirth and to proceed from there. And it's all about our being able to see all conditions that we encounter, especially all negative conditions, and be able to take them onto the path, to be able to see everything as opportunities for being able to progress along that path towards emulating all those qualities of those smart beings, those Buddhas and those bodhisattvas. And so this is kind of, we can make aspirational prayers to actually help us to do that, to see these instances as opportunities and to be able to apply the teachings straight in. We can also apply the mental factors of mindfulness and alertness to notice what's going on in front of us, to notice what's going on internally, and to be able to ensure that we steer that towards virtue, towards being able to aim to for ultimate happiness. In other words, to apply it to the path. And then when we talk about faith, and we talk about these faith of pure faith, and faith of conviction, and manifest faith, and looking towards the Buddhas and seeing the qualities of an enlightened being and so on, what really makes that a fully qualified faith is when we actually put it into practice like this, when we notice these opportunities, when we are not thrown by the problems and issues of psychic existence, but we actually see them as opportunities. That's when we have a fully qualified faith.
What the commercial, what the yeah, that 남주 내시 전에 다 간제 저 가서래 뭐 다데 심지 탐제가 도다네 산제 공부 아니 가서도 마다나 다 심지 탐제가 다 심지 탐제도 다 간제 산제 공부 토바치기 대체되는 전주스 말랍절라기 대체되는 자 가서다 저 가서래 준주고 흉지 얘기 삼사 원데 공부시 원데
And so our motivation to attain that state of enlightenment as quickly as we can, to do everything we possibly can to do that. And in order to do that, I know I must perfect all the trainings on the Bodhisattva. To train in those trainings, I need to understand what they are about. And therefore, I need to be able to rely on a non-mistaken text. And so it is with this in mind that I am here this morning to hear a teaching from the great text called the Bodhisattva's Way of Life.
안 되는 다나 되지 또 사서 이내 다 개문도 다 저거 남준의 시절랑 그 도움되더라 아니 탑질라 투제 좀 봐 또봐 샤자 또봐 셋업 아니 랑거 타고도 진짜 막인 심지 탐자 마사오 매봐요 삼사 왔는데 체
So in the space in front of us, we have the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha, our own root guru, in the aspect of Shakyamuni Buddha. And all around us are all kind mother sentient beings without exception.
아니 저거 둘라 세드베 아니 도마샤자 도바데 다가저 죽음에 꿀라 죽음에도 샤지 차니 예산에 예냥자가 두세고 혼자나 봐 아니 꿀라 죽음에 도저서 어디를 죽고 마셔 아니 지워 정말 도가 홀레 왜 알까서데 왜서 빠도 매바 트네 아니 신랑전네 이시바 오나다 저바 젠자네 이시바 되게 도마샤자 도베 나바 젠자 올레 오 출라 맞자다 미제고 우견데 같이봐 이시바 무슨 코나 쇼네 유 삼사전 어디를 고마셔.
And that the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha is dressed in the saffron robes of a monk. He has two hands. His one hand, his right hand is in the earth-touching mudra, and his left hand is in the meditative equipoise mudra, holding an alms bowl filled with nectar. He is in the nature of pure, clear life, and he's marked by an Om at the crown, an A at the throat, and a Hung at the heart center. From that Hung at the center, countless life rays emanate, going out into the pure realms and inviting all of the wisdom beings and the empowering deities from those realms. The wisdom beings dissolve into that central figure, and the empowering deities confer the nectar of empowerment, which some of which overflows at the crown, from which spontaneously appears the figure of Akshobhya.
산제 고송토 연대대 시베간에 아니 데라 아니 저거 당에다와 이지게 되고 뭐도 되고 되지 세답 아니 당안이 저랑가 타고는 심제대다 탐제자 아니 저거 주소서 동안 나서가 남바 민내시 나라서 내시 남주에 되는 되게 고송토 연대체네 아니 되말 당에 정도도 되게 되게 것이 공부시 아니 심제라 미베 닝제 응 되나 세대가 남바 투비 공부를 미베 아니 대봐
And therefore, we are now contemplating the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and enlightened activities. And from that, we generate the triple faith of pure faith, manifest faith, and faith of conviction. From looking at all sentient beings all around us in the 6 realms of existence, but able to cognize with a human intelligence, they are also looking at the Buddha, reflecting on the qualities of the Buddha's body, speech, and mind, and so on, and also generating that faith of pure faith, faith of conviction, and manifest faith. And so we look on all the sentient beings, and they are suffering with the mind of compassion, and simultaneously observing the figure in the merit field of the Buddha with the mind of faith.
What is compassion? What is compassion? What is that? That's some jet that Allah, maybe need it in it, that I don't get you that Java the China Chimera Chawa Shuchi, and Java Target Chigi, that I Genova Lamatura, which in the so that I get some jet that and there were Judah Java the Chima, the Machuchi, the Mashot, the Target, that I Genova Lamatura, which in the so what's the Java, so the Jenna. What is the compassion? And Kusum Tule, to Chenanga, we said that you were given Tomana, the Chibas, Kabatuya, and that I go to get the Shiva Chasu, some such, and they want the Dembachus, what did the Bakabati Shasus, or what did the Kumashet?
And so, reflecting on the sense of compassion for all sentient beings, we really ponder how wonderful it would be if all the sentient beings were could be removed, who could be freed from suffering and the cause of suffering. May that be the case. I will see that it is the case. So, Guru Deity, please bless me to be able to make this so. And again, we make the prayer. How wonderful it would be if all sentient beings had happiness and the cause of happiness. May this be so. May I be the one make it so. O Guru Deity, please bless me to make it so. And as a result of our supplications, light rays emanate from the Buddha in front and entering into all the sentient beings in ourselves and removing all the negativities and obscurations, providing all of the potential to indeed remove all suffering and the cause of suffering, and to endow those with all happiness and the causes of happiness.
There is some time to lay about that. There is the Randa Rangatos in the Chivo or Temba Tuga home, what the Yigisum set up, and Tombala Sunday Cheneta, Tombala Sunday Chat, Tomba Comni, and Tobacula with Sinanga Research Humor, and Tom debated to Kabatu Takaja, Luke on the Saba, Nagos, a year concert debated with Matachu, some compassion. Tagani Shiggy, and you go Omtel, Tombek. We said you go omtela meaning omle we said padu me about turn and the betanga title monument title then tamba rangis round the rangata some time to get down then the sun started to any we said pan we said padu me about turn and round the rangata the sim time jiwo omla kaso the takaje kaso the omla padu me about turn because of the increased cigarette on part of my turn and round the Simjata Chivo de la part Tim to do, and Louis Gona Sojiba, Majimba Limba, Misamba Chibalo, set there, Sangama, Tom, the Kanga Chas of that Yapo Shuchunso, Raja Simja Tamjig, Louis Gona 70, Chaso, Yapo Shuchunso, sons of compassion, or did the compassion. Then title was title, so anything, young. Mixer de Jamba Amamotilla, meaning. Tagara come, Ale, we said Mabo Pado Meba Trene, Apado Meba Trene, Rangitembe, Randa Rangato, Simjata Tembe Alma, Apado Meba Shuni. Was it under the Caso de Takache? We said Pado Amabo Pado Meba Trene, young Nagasabe Debata, Tama Tizo, I get sit down, Singama, Toma Melty, but Nani, 20 so what in the compassion. That Tembe Hole. Hong meaning to make to go home Tagaram, only was a part of Meba Turn, home part of Meba Randa Simjata, you go home apart Timnata. You going to Sabbath, but Nani, some set there, what did they compassion and dictate diet and the premise of Pendachibu you think.
So we can also reflect, of course, to expand on this kind of practice, to visualize that similarly to the figure in front, that ourselves and all sentient beings are marked by the triple letter of Om at the crown, A at the throat, and Hung at the heart center. And that then the descending nectar light meditation begins, whereby we make these supplications to the figure in front, and that we have all of the light emanating from the Buddha, beginning, say, with the light coming from the white Om at the crown of Shakyamuni Buddha, And then that starts kind of like send forth light, which is marked by countless letters as well, and that dissolving into the that is at our crown and at the crown of all other sentient beings, and instantaneously starts to purify all of the physically accumulated negativities, such as killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct, and that these are completely eradicated from our system. Now, at the same time, we can be reciting the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha Tayata Om Muni Muni Mahamuni Esoha constantly, while this is kind of facilitating this process of purification. This is followed then by the red letter A at the throat, sending out again countless rays of light, entering into the throats of ourselves and all other sentient beings, and affecting this process of purification as well, while we continue to recite the mantra. And this dealing with all the verbal negativities, such as lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip. And these are completely purified as well. And so the finally then, from the blue hung at the heart center of the central figure, light rays emanate, entering into the homes that we have at our own heart centers, again dealing with all the mentally accumulated negativities from acts of covetousness, malicious intent, and wrong view. And again, this dissolution into our the hung at our hearts immediately begins this process of complete purification of all of these negativities along with their imprints.
바차도 잡았다 룽아 예수게 좀 디바디가 잡마서 디바디 샤베 바차 대다 다잡아 장시 다바 중수 섬서 장시 다바 중수 섬서 어디를 공부하셔.
And then to complete the process, we can visualize the light coming simultaneously from the three letters home, the white, the red, and the blue, simultaneously all coming and dissolving into the three letters and the letters of all the sentient beings as well. And this is affecting the complete finishing purification. So that's getting to the imprints of all the negativities that we've accumulated. Because as well as purifying negativities, there will be this residue of the propensities and so on of those negativities. So this deals with all these imprints of these negativities that they are completely purified.
What is conversation? What is that? Simja Tamjega Dondon, Sanjay Goma, Tobe, Matona Tomato Toba Chiki, and T. Cheto Takajachi, and Sanjay Tapja Twitchim, the Tombe Niva Combat, and Tuba Chiki, Tuba Chewalan, Takajaji, Kunjo Janju said that Donda Janju Samaja Tamando, and they gave a Tombe Shung. And Juju Shung the Takaja to some chili in Sasa, what in the commercial, what the
And so then to kind of redetermine to ourselves that the goal is to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings is something I can and I will do. And in doing so, I need to kind of, again, inspire oneself like this to generate the conventional mind of enlightenment, the ultimate mind of enlightenment. And because this this Bodhisattva's way of life, this text here is really a quintessential text in enabling me to do this. I will set myself now to listen here extremely carefully so that I can use this to fulfill myself in this way, fulfill the path.
아니 야네 양도 저거 댄싱 기본나 아니 구세 유리도 때마쇼 때네 두고 시원 다다 두바쇼 야네 양도 삼나다 다가니 산제게 때마디야 지대 가나 유리도 내바쇼 코 마도 봐도 내바쇼 네네 아니 셈제게 돌라 다 페바 베멜hun도 두바지 용하쇼 와다 산제 고바지 신도 아니 펜토바지 용하쇼 산제데 잔조서 뭐 대다 두고는 요만나 시제네 아니 산제게 때마게 지대 감 용도를 직전 감 탐제라 탐속의 직전 탐제라 아니 편도에서도 때마다 유료도 내가 쇼서 그래서 야나야도 삼라다나 야나야 때마다 내를 핑계래 아니 될라 때는 랑게 초사트가 라부치 용 그래我的 안다가는 이제 아니 지금 뭐다 양 갑래 오다 산제가 연대도 전에 아니 산제 무엇을 전에 근데 야뭐 제토가 쇼 무엇을 전에 아니 숨도 뒤에 용토가 쇼 어들 야나 양도 삼다에 그래서 랑게 산제가 제 땜바게 아니 좋았음절라 편도 제게 아니 그때 니바디 아니 두번 그러와 어때 야나 양도 삼다네 어들 제 개침부 이버 어들 제
And so this kind of thinking around these issues is something that's really helpful and beneficial to again and again and again bring to mind. You know, that we kind of simply have this prayer of how wonderful it would be if all the teachings of the Buddha were to remain in this world and in all these worlds, to the notion of the generation of the mind of enlightenment, be it in the conventional sense or the ultimate sense, is something so valuable, so precious, may remain in all the worlds forever. These kinds of aspirations that we have, reflecting on, for example, the qualities of an enlightenment, and just to think about those and to go, how wonderful it would be to have such qualities, and to generate that sense of deep aspiration, to be able to generate them in one's own body-mind continuum. In other words, to constantly work on our full appreciation of the path and of the qualities of enlightenment. And so it's kind of like, this is not just to kind of continuously inspire ourselves, but it's very also effective for purifying negative tendencies, negativities, and for accumulating positive merit.
아니 산제 무엇을 제게 아니 레기 누가 컴페도 줘야 아니 개개 발제시 어디에 용거다 어다 산제의 기부 산제 연대 전에 배서 산제 미쳐버리셔 아니 산제 연대 템베토는 다음에 이제 뭐도 아니 된대게 산제의 연대의 템바 된대 산제도 무엇을 전화도 근데 야부래 제도바쇼 쓰나 무엇을 전화도 근데 야부래 제도바쇼 소들의 야내야도 삼다 아니 나게 루규도들 삼다나 근데 샤리부터 어디 상계 좀 되던 무엇을 제외게 규대 근데 사샤 아니 겨왕에만 solo bumtama bongela mi kewal lente de antibato jigike lenke solo jige lega chente de ani sanje weson ka ko de ta langani ba sigro jinal de de ku changde ba ku debri yo de ba chen ani sanje yende samlo ta de sanje se de kibo tambar tida chena da khande ya kore so de samlo kebala de na loni donga bya kola sanje de ngosu chena ta sanje ge ani lomena ne so je chadwa 어다데 디주 규다다 저야 루기도 저라 삼로다나 야 랑게 되잖아 지바로 왔다 규두고 그러 와 어데 어데 그 삼로다에 되게 좀 인사리
And so to generate that notion as well, to kind of lay down the karmic imprints for us to be able to actually meet with Buddhas, with enlightened beings, I think that's extremely important as well. And so to contemplate on these great qualities and to really
maybe Noel's internet some problem.
Long before the time of Shakyamuni Buddha, was a courier taking messages from one place to another, and he took shelter in an old ruined temple one night, and that through the light of a candle, he was able to see the kind of fading frescoes on the far wall, which depicted enlightened beings, and this faith arose in him of how wonderful these beings are. Wouldn't it be wonderful to be actually in the presence of one of these Buddhas? And that imprint alone was enough to guarantee him 2,600 years ago to be one of the closest disciples that the historical Shakyamuni Buddha had. And so we are functioning in the same way. We have a body-mind continuum, the same as that. And so when we lay down these imprints on our own minds, that we can achieve the same.
Well, so what is it? Yeah, what that's it. Because I want to tell you what that is.
Napchik, the Leo Shiba.
Get you. Oh, yeah. That is a treasure moment. Start to get it. Get you. Well, so that never Chuba Paru the Chimba. Lobala, she said that Jajuga Sims, Chuba the Cheva. Minyamba Cheva, so that Jajuga Sim Jelly Chuba the Cheva, Minyamba Cheva, Yala, the Lata catch him with the tongue. Payu did catch him without Palme on you, was a Nizum Chita, Yamni single unit, and then Palme on get any Tatam Yamni Chamadoma, we want one part of the Machet Camerson, Payu did what catch him with this. Treat him la, Lobby treat the lake, give it to Dabarasa Soya. Top that Jabba decision. Geshe Payu, that Geshe Payu Sigua, and Payu de Jabba decision again. Don't yet. Shooting Chaba to Chedi Shaba. That Aja, Paja, how much I love to show Paja Lama says Dakaja too, because of the Dakaja Serbatang and Junjutang and the thing is the shut Paja, how much I love to Shabacha. The Anaja, that you go. Reta, Lu Longe. Gaza Shendo Toyas, Jimbala Lopes, Moe Yala to Cheddar Takaja, Moe Yala who got a Shema watch and what Takaja, such as she got a Sugudwa, or she got what the chat. That would what the chat.
And so we are beginning chapter 4 of the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. And this has several main outlines. And so here it's saying that with regard to the training in generosity and the activities of the perfections, there are 4 main outlines. And the first of these, so in order that the activities related to the mind of enlightenment do not degenerate, we are encouraged to habituate to the branch practice of conscientiousness. And again, the point, this is extremely important. This sense of conscientiousness is, of course, immediately counteracting the carelessness that even those who are genuine and engage in practice, this carelessness kind of habit that we have can nullify a lot of good intentions and indeed set us on the road to negativity. And so a sense of conscientiousness is vital. The second of these main outlines is that engaged in the virtue related to the practice of maintaining good ethical conduct, it is very important. And there's a kind of a particular explanation of the practice of sustaining mindfulness and alertness as the means of being able to look after and protect that kind of virtue. And so again, these are 2 very important mental factors, the mindfulness and alertness. The third main outline is an explanation of how to train in the remaining perfections. So here it's mentioned generosity and ethical conduct. The remaining 4 would be patience, enthusiastic effort, meditative concentration, and wisdom. The 4th main outline is then an explanation of how to go about the branch practice of dedication of the virtue and so on gained from the perfection of our practice of generosity, just giving of our body, our wealth, and our roots of virtue.
What is that? This is the Tango de la Chanjuga Sem Cheba the Cheba, men Minyamba Cheba Yala, Payu Lacure, so that Payu Lobatella, Nichena, Liu Shung Shabata, Liu Che Shabacha. That Liu Shung Shabatella Sumchena, Payu comes to Toteba, and Gaba Sheba, don't do our watcher. What the subject of what
And so the So the first of these four, that is the concentrating on the practice of conscientiousness, that branch practice as a means of preventing the degeneration of our dedication to degeneration of the mind of enlightenment and the activities associated with that mind of enlightenment. And so this has two main headings. First will be an explanation of the content of this chapter, and the second will be an explanation of the name of this chapter. With regard to the first of those, that has three headings. First of all, a brief exposition of conscientiousness. Secondly, a more extensive explanation. And thirdly, a summary.
Bayu comes to talk about the Kavasheva, turn to assume you to talk, Suedla Zawale, Gavesage, dead of Chanju, several Tesona, Yawameba, Taduja, lovely Mita Pepper Chas.
And so the beginning is the first verse, which looks at a brief exposition of conscientiousness, which reads, having firmly seized the awakening mind in this way, a conqueror's child must never waver. Always should they exert themselves to never stray from their practice.
What is in that? Gavese, Teta Posada, Gavese, Kinamle, that did the Siguras, Gavese, Chanju Sabanam Jess, that Narsheba Tarta, Narsheba, Teta Porta, Chanju Semni, Narsheba, Kujo Chanju Senda, Chanju Semni, Rabdo Tembasota, Manyamba Geneta, Manyambara, and Chikata, Manyamba, and Guana Condo Perechido, that Quata, Manyaba Temple with the catch which Guana Condo Peval, Temple Manor, Guana Condo Pay Marvata, then the Tambu, Yoba the Temple never catch Morva, Temple sooner, and Jigger Reta, the Gagan Sevach in the Temple sooner, and the same Yawa Mebata, same did a Kamatewa, Yawa Meber, to Tato. Young that and the Chindu to be Lavala Mitawachikus, patching to be Chindu, Labjatella, Bayuki, and a small Bayuki, father than Bayuki, then and small Bezun Chiburas. Taka the let and go in by that Tango Bezuma Jenna, that let and go at the and small Bezun Church and a conduct and quite nature Changurada, Ranshingi, and Bezuma Dova. To the Changurua, what else? Tambo Bezuma Joy, Yonda Mevazan, Bever Changos, Bezu Jibures. Bezuma Jenna short of water, by you did Bezuma Javayina, and got a part of Matumba Chindu, and got Gunga Chatiga Yondigua, the Bever Chawash.
So here it refers to the Bodhisattvas, these children of the conquerors, who have, as has been previously explained, must thoroughly rely on the mind of enlightenment, be it in the conventional mind of enlightenment or the ultimate mind of enlightenment, and so as that they never deviate from the import of those minds, and that they are constantly training in accordance with the six perfections, and never stray, as it says here, from doing so. And the means by which they can hope to guarantee this is to make efforts at conscientiousness. So it's saying it's very, very important that we always pray, that the mind of enlightenment may increase more and more. And if we don't make effort at it, that's not going to happen of its own accord. And so it's kind of saying from the beginner's point of view, effort is extremely important, and that it's important that we make the effort at conscientiousness to protect what little kind of little realization of the mind of enlightenment that we have now, in order to kind of allow it kind of a safe kind of state, a place in which to grow and grow, which to increase more and more.
바요 검수 개발 쉐바들라 개발 쉐바들 니체네 딱 저 자주가 셈 바요 콤바타 아니 라발라 바요 가서도 자주가 셈라 자주가 셈라 바요 콤바타 아니 라발라 바요 바차와 자오샤 다 당부 자주가 셈라 바요 콤바들 니체네 자주가 셈 도도 미루가 다 자주가 셈 아니 도도 미루가 좀세 아니 다 돌아이는 예바카리 우리 님이 다 당부 자주 좀 도도 미루가 좀세 들라 당부 니스 뭐야 이게 subject 충분하나.
And so the second of the outlines above was a more extensive explanation of conscientiousness. And so this has 2 points to make here. First of all, the habituation to conscientiousness in relation to the mind of enlightenment, and a commitment to conscientiousness. The first has 2 other subheadings, and that is the reasoning why it is incorrect to abandon the mind of enlightenment, and secondly, the faults associated with such an abandonment. So the first of these, then, the reasoning why it's incorrect to abandon the mind of enlightenment has the verses number 2 and 3. In the case of reckless actions or of deeds not well considered, although a promise may have been made, it is fit to reconsider whether I should do them or not. But how can I ever withdraw from what has been examined by the great wisdom of the Buddhas and their sons, and even many times by me myself?
Hello.
Hello, Jenna.
Good. This is. What? That kacha. That subject that kasa. Tawa the Joshua.
Joshua Sangya.
But just about kacha. Then the damage cheju cham dangse tabesi. Sanje namda di se shera chibu kantashi teni ki yang taktaba tela shudu chishu yosita mata para babjuye to zaba kanyinba kanshi chungse che jang lekbar mata ba cheba teni dambur damche ne chebar maju jang sa chine jang dangshe takbe rikde dangne jakwe wa yinde 가서 딱지 제체는 잡고 봐 인데 아니 산제 남다 디세 자주 선반 남게 셔럽 침배다 로다 셔럽 침배 강다신 다네 도도 미로 송바다 다니장 다신 레과 다네 될라 쇼도 지시여데 쇼도 미로 셔봐 오셔.
So here these verses are pointing to the fact that in some instances, one may enter into an endeavor where we kind of have been being reckless, or we haven't been paid due diligence to what we're setting about, or we have paid some attention, but it's scant attention. And so even though then we might make a commitment to do that, yet later on reflection, or where we have done more analysis, we see that this isn't for me, or this isn't a good idea, and then we don't necessarily have to go through with that, do we? And so it's saying that with analysis kind of clarifying, we don't have to go through with something that we may have even committed to. However, when we're looking into something that has been proposed by the great wisdom associated with the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas, and that they have done that process of analysis and recommended this as something worthy to take up, then to give up on that, having taken it on, would be ill-considered. And it's even something that we ourselves, have examined and found it to be a good idea. And so, therefore, we should not hesitate, or we should not prevaricate, or to abandon what we have already committed to.
장주 구조 장주가 선다 돈다 장주가 생기 아니 란진 니가 된 타치바 두고 요바테다 편바 시네 아니 람되나 아니 랑기가 될라지 가소래다 지금 가소래다 지금 가소래 이시다 매번 년에 아니 켈레 차상 재산에 다 되네 오다 가소래다 뢰다와나 다 로고 말스 가서 소소 좀잼 돈 말와다 레로다 아니 영문배 온거 르고 요르면다 뭐유 내주 심배 돈을 르고 요마르바 르당고 요마르바 다디인사 어다디 제대로 말했어 수고 요바라다레.
And so here's pointing out that from the Buddhas and so on, who have from eon to eon analyzed what is of benefit to both self and others, and they've come up with the concept of the mind of enlightenment itself, of taking this on as something which is kind of like irrefutable. So it's kind of like therefore, he showed this on the path, demonstrated this on the path, and that we ourselves, having come across this notion, looked into it, have analyzed it, and have reached the point of conviction ourselves, and to the point where we have taken it on as a commitment. And therefore, we should not even think about giving it up or forsaking the mind of enlightenment. And we should actually go straight into a more deeper analysis to see what is actually behind this idea, this very notion to give it up. And we'll find that, it's kind of mired in a laziness, some kind of laziness, and indeed promoted by mental affliction as well. And so that means I should not give it up.
그래서 뭐저 다들 레로 수르 자와가 생길레로 다니엘 니베레로 아니 길루벨레로 호다 텐데 온게 다 아니 다 노모바 생게 온게 아니 엔게 다 가서 다 냠슬라야래 장르도 좋아하면도 그 뭐유 내주 심바 디샤바이나 소설 편바 두고 요바지 워터베 돈에 말와 그러와 디샤바이나 소설 편바 두고 요바 편도 요바지 워터베 온게 말이야 갖고 디도 거기다 더도 좀 삼도 삼로다는 아니 딜 람딜 죽투바 소예게 그래서 죽투바 소예게 다 같이 지금 또 민버체네 다 같이 지금 또다 민버체네 아니 그 무트는 laptop을 배주 지고로 쓰고와 디샤는 자원을 지금 말이야 그래서 탑시에 요 말다 때도 되게 지고 라제 니가 된 타치바 중국어요나 탑 니바지 요 말이야 다 디마전 디 탑시 요르스는 탑시 가야 요 말이야 나 같이 지금 제국어요나 아니 디 바시르면 딜 탑 니바지 매바 인사 데려왔다 주송기 산제 탐제 색별람 데려왔다.
And so we need to kind of analyze and see, what's pushing this this thought to forsake the mind of enlightenment, and the lazinesses of, the one that is mired in busy activities or negative activities, or the laziness of sloth, or the laziness of defeatism. It's too much for me, I can't do it, and so on. These we have to see and ask the straight question: is this a beneficial way of thinking? Is this something that, if I concede to these kind of lazinesses, is this going to be beneficial? And so the actuality, to maintain our adherence to the actuality of the situation, to ask clear, is this way of thinking helpful or harmful? And we have to look toward what is beneficial after all. And that's what we're really at heart wanting. So the reasoning here has to be more subtle. Reasoning here has to go deeper. And then we have to see what is going to give us the power to ripen what is the beneficial way of thinking. And to kind of reach a point too that, look, the path as presented by the Buddha to attain the state of enlightenment in order to benefit all sentient beings, to generate the mind of enlightenment, and to do whatever we can to support that generation, is the only way to guarantee genuine happiness for self and others. It's not like there's a second choice or a third choice, or I'm fed up with this way and let's try this way. It's kind of like we have already reached the point when we talk about ultimate happiness. It's kind of like the attainment of enlightenment, the benefit of all sentient beings, as the only means of being able to do so.
그래서 제보 민바지 제고고 여바이나 아니 제보디 두고라 다 유튜브라 아니 다가제 가서도 가리가서 속고도 두고 다디 디 마토바이나 아니 제보디 민두고 요 말와 다 제보디 민두고 요 말 다 대점 체거 맞다 될라 가서나 대점 체거 말다 대점 맞아 다 되더라 니바 도에 님이라 좀다 되지도 아니 다 가자 제보 마미 받자 마이 봐 아니 다 켈렌사네 맞아봐 이나 안들 기억 가리고 내가 가리고 있으나 다 가리고 있으나 년주 조에 님이 그러다 년주라 조에 님이 요구됐어 다 케말라나 다가래 케말라나 가서도 지다 가서도 가서도 다 지다미 케말라네 년주라 먼저 되다 말에 가서나 가서도 먼저 되어라 배나 제배 하나 마토베 녀바다 라신 하나 마토베 녀봤어 제 라신 하나 마토바데 켈레나 말레나 배나 속죠 바다 마침발레바 미서 그때 켈레나 말레나 안고 녀바인 거래 다 이나야 다 가자 저 이나야 가자 동바 켈레네 아니 맞아봐 이나 아니 제배 하나 마토베 녀바 좀 물어봐 제배 하나 마토베 녀바 좀 물어봐도 어디서 다 들을 때는 거기가 다 가자 제발 때네 가서 제발 켈레 발라 때네 주바이나 아니 야 제보야 비다고 봐도 매봐 용디 마주바이나 디 도조 야 켈레 발라 때네 아니 제발 하나마도 녀바야 봐도 매봐 용디 용디 좀 그러고 용디 좀 다 되네 그래서 이번 도에 님이라 숨다 마주바이나 다 아니 녀바디게 용 거서 녀주 도에 님이 에 셴들레 녀버 좋아 그런 냠버 좋아. 또 안에 사토발라. 안 타스바 좋아. 어디에 용거됐어? 셔봐오자. 다 당보들라 숨 당보들라 니바 도에 님이 다 녀조 도에 님이들 숨잖아. 녀조 도에 좀체. 아니 가르치는 녀조를 줘그래. 그래서 아니 데 좀체듯이. 아니 데라 시제 거봐. 다디 데데 도에 좀체게 아니 시제 그 답변해서 먹고 봐. 아니 나 겨우뽕 봐 왔잖아. 다 가져 지금 어떻게 좀 숨고는 숨고도 어떻게.
So the second of the main outlines is looking at the faults of abandoning or forsaking the mind of enlightenment. And so it's pointing out really here that that if we abandon the mind of enlightenment, it's not just a question of giving up something that you had accepted to do, and there's kind of like the consequences of that. But it's kind of saying too that there's specific faults with giving up the the commitment to the mind of enlightenment. And these relate to, so what kind of like what will ripen to a result. And so like when we lay down the specific causes that lead to a particular ripening into a result, if we don't lay down those causes, then there will be no result. But not only that, when it comes to the mind of enlightenment and the commitment to that, there are particular faults related to breaking that commitment. So if we have taken on a commitment, then there are specific consequences to the actual commitment itself. But if we haven't taken on the commitment, then there's only the fault relating to any particular negativity that we have done. So this relates to what are called naturally occurring negativities and those that have been proscribed by the Buddha. And so we have naturally occurring negativities like killing, for example, and that would accrue negativity from the actual fault of taking life. But when we are taking on a vow from, say, which has been recommended by the Buddha, and so we have the and we kill, for example, that occurs that similar fault of taking life, but we also have an extra fault of having broken a commitment that we have taken on. So this is the interesting thing about vows, that there's more benefit to individual actions done under a vow, but there's also more fault when we contravene those vows. So it's very important that when we say we have accepted on the basis of the evidence presented and so on, and the ideal elucidated, the mind of enlightenment, and to engage in the practices related to the mind of enlightenment, to then don't do them, then that is a double fault. That is the fault of engaging in these non-actions or negative actions, and then the fault of like breaking a commitment to do so. So here it describes some of the faults of giving up on the mind of enlightenment. First of all, it leads to rebirth in the lower realms, that fault. Then it leads to a degeneration of the welfare of all others. And thirdly, it distances us from being able to attain the high paths or the high grounds. And with regard to the first of these, ending up in the lower realms, the reasoning why we go to the lower realms, and this is backed up by how it is shown to be so from scripture. And thirdly, an abandoning of objections to this point of view, or looking into the objections to this point of view. Verse number 4. If having made such a promise, I do not put it into action, then by deceiving every living being, what kind of rebirth shall I take?
ngaransu loyu to shonghe me dige 나한테 군에 전에 지금 가서도 이게 랜드 차시 타와 어느 것도 저게 그 상계의 주요인데 그시다 아니 이 롱라 때문에 때에 저들면도 나라서다 로이도 마셔왔지 그러다 맞아 제부인데 지금 뒤쳐봐도 제부인데 용거 여봐도 아니 이체네 아니 켈링게 여봐 안 뒤다 냠도 안 냠도 야 맞아 와는 여봐도 용거 여봐도 아니 켈링 거기서 가르스나 다 제부 야고 요에데 켈레 두 맞아 봐 제부 두자 요에데 켈 말려나 아니 그 나게 차도도 와 다 비게 산제 그 쇠샤바 게 말다 고 주다 제비 그 내조 로디 되는 차대도 와 안디 산제 켈메도 그 가르톨 땡겨 와 안 땡겨 봐 어디다 단 게데다 담제나 레게 두바 맞잖아 선제데다 꿀레베 다지 좋아 진짜 교수 왔다 게데 데다 담젠다 가제 게세 더 소소게 다 지금 선제 탐제게 아니 된 두기 있으네 다 산제 고바 두기 있어 켈레네 아니 나 줘발라 라비스 켈레네 데다 선제게 된 자와 켈란 담제네 아니 다 좋아 라랭 거 되는 거서다 라랭 거 되네 레게 두바 맞자면 선제 데다 꿀레베 다지 좋아 지자 주다 녀조조 오다 소소 좋아 근데 주그랬으나 아니 디 되거든 아니 녀조를 깨그랬어 소다
So when we take on a commitment to do something in the form of a vow, or like you say, the commitment to abide or live a life according to the mind of enlightenment, you know that it, and we genuinely do so, then you know, the good qualities will accrue for us. We become closer to the state of enlightenment itself, and all is well. And this is kind of like not simply because the Buddha said so, but because of a natural law. This is the law of cause and effect here in operation. So this is an issue with regard to that. But and you know, kind of like the kind of cause and effect as it's described too in relation to the mind of enlightenment is kind of inconceivable to our minds, you know, that these things can be so. But it's also relevant to when we make a commitment but then don't live up to that commitment, when we kind of like do the opposite to that. It's very clear then that the opposite kind of results can be proposed. In other words, if we take on the commitment to live our life according to the mind of enlightenment, but do not do so, do the opposite, then lower realms will be the result, and lower realms and an unlimited experience in lower realms will be the result there. Why? Because this is the natural law. There's a law of cause and effect at play here as well. It's not only you know, just because the Buddha has said so. It's the way things are, and that and so in relation to, you know, karma itself, the subtleties of karma itself are beyond our capacity to understand, and they are only kind of understood in their subtlety by an enlightened being, by the Buddha. And so it says here, as the verse says, so if a sentient being, if somebody, if we accept kind of the proposition to work for the benefit and the welfare of sentient beings and take on a vow to do so, but then do not follow through with the actions commensurate with that vow, then we are deceiving all sentient beings. And say the question is asked at the end of that verse, and then what kind of rebirth will I take? The answer is you will take a rebirth in the lower realms.
다 간제 소소 켈레바나 시마주바나 다 켈갈레바서 심제 탐제 아니 가서데 시시지과 시바 코아다 아니 시와 아니 가서데 다데 가서데 가서 시와다 시바다 시와 니가게 아니 지벌레 제네 코아다 시바 코아다 아니 가서데 다 간제 시달을 롱게 다 녀랑 다 좀 고마 라 레데게 데이터 단체 아니 라 시대게 아니 다 가서데 다 시대게 아니 가서데 다 가서다 다데 경기 차들에 봐 되네 시바의 시바 니가 직벌에 되네 탈 아니 산제 고말로 거기 있다 산제 고말로 거바 담제로 담제네 다 되네 담제네 좋아 라랭게 도나다 뒤두비를 배준 책으로 근데 레게 두바 배준 맞아 봐이나 다 가르쳐서 심제다 저도 배수 배네 다 심제 단제 타바다 다 탐제 개별 고마 그 저도 배네 대다 아니 켈랑네 다 산제 고마 아니 짐벌 맞아 봐이나 아니 대다 루아 잡아서 고가 당와서 루아 잡아서 고가 당와서 아니 다는 고가 당와이나 다 고가 당와에게 다 딜라 때네 다 소절가 라 좋아지다 다 근데 랑라 제부 근데 좀 그랬으나 아니 냐와라 소베 아니 년주 동에는 아니 다 다그 말 년주 동에 되다 아니 년고가 차그랬어 가서 네가 초주 산제 탐다 샘제 자마저 초주 산제 탐자 루바로 봐 고가 당와로 봐 초주 산제 탐자 빵도 샤네 아니 저게 감송게 샘제 탐자 아니 코하다 아니 시외 시단이게 직발에 되는 산지게 살아 그 스케일에 말아 다 켈레네 아니 조에 돼 마주바 이나 아니 대다 탐자 루아고다 고가 당사로 왔다 제도 아니 다 된데게 제보들 소소 가리 용사래다 리베 삼로다다 가리 용사래서는 왔다 녀솔이 교회로 맞대 버렸어
So then to clarify, when it comes to the specific commitment here that's being referred to, is that we have committed to freeing all sentient beings from the extremes of cyclic existence on the one hand, and then the peace of nirvana on the other, of not getting stuck in that peace of nirvana, but to lead them beyond there to the state of enlightenment itself. And that's what is stated in the very vow of the mind of enlightenment. And so then there are the practices, the perfections, etc., that are the designated practices for somebody who's taken on such a commitment. So if we fail to engage in those practices, if we do not do them, then we have deceived all sentient beings. And that the question is posed: what could be a suitable result for such a deception? And it can only be at least a rebirth in the lower realms, in the hell realms even. And so it's kind of saying here you have deceived the 6 realms of existence, and so saying what could be the possible karmic result of such a deception. Has to be rebirth in the lower realms.
어디를 차 다니바 되다 세제 거바되다 세제다 산제고 룽 산제고 숨에 룽되다 다 세제 거다 저 아니 뭐다 세제 거에들 다들 세제 거바니서 자월려서 뭐고 펴봐 중세 라양사 이게 정말 삼제네 미가 정말 맞제바 대야이다 줄소나 라나메벤 대와라 삼바타베 되네네 조아 탐자 류제나 denro chiga rojuram.
So the second of the subheadings here was then to establish that point from the scriptures, from what the Buddha has said about this issue. And so verses number 5 and 6. If it has been taught by the Buddha that she who does not give away the smallest thing she once intended to give will take rebirth as a hungry spirit, and then if I should deceive all beings after having sincerely invited them to the unsurpassable bliss, shall I take happy rebirth?
세감자 답변은 정보부 지다 패봐 되게 세감라서 다시 세라소바 가셔 세도도 얘기는 된다라 아니 세라소바 게 증기 스켈레네 될라 맞죠 봐이나 엔들레 맞은 게 밑에 이다 개와를 그랬어 도 점바 시샤나 송여 봐. 도 점바 니샤나라 이달에 기그레 데레 송아 임바이나. 송아 임바이나 소거다. 이달 기그레 데레 송여 봐 인자. 다 브라타 단데 뭐뭐 패봐. 뭐뭐 패봐 생강자 칼라 사된 직장 생강 사이 직장 소 중세라 이게 지말 관계 3년 미간 지말 다 데레 지말 마지 미지마 미지 그래서 지마서 미지마 되니 이다가 줄다 또 잡아지 샤나라 송도 와서 송나 다 딜레 나가다 감성게 심제 단자 라나메베 자주게 대와 라 사바타 심 딩네 카사 많이 심 딩네 사바타베 안 심제 탐자라 탐자 안 라나메베 자주게 대와라 저도 녀네 다 대마주와이나 좋아 탐자 루와 차게 도와서 루와 제베 안 덴도 지가 도주다 다디 덴도를 그리스도 그랬다 다 덴도를 만져나 조사 니르와 덴도도 니르 니르와 덴도도 니르 니라 가서 다 덴도를 만져 다 가봐 그랬어 셔봐 보자 다 세제 롱거 바다 아니 릭베 좀세 거 니가 땅 거도 세제 거 바다 롱거 바다 아니 좀세 거 니가 줘도 어디르자 그래 다 덴데지 그거 땅 이나 다 롱딜라 따네 세 감직 담직 집어 지게서 켈렌산의 마지막에 이다 줄을 송거 더 대만이 샤나 송도 왔어 다 된대지 마이나 다 초주 산제 탐제가 빵도 샤네 감송거 센제 탐제는 산제가 싸게는 전도 얘기 있어 담제 산에 다디 마제바이나 다 된줄을 끼게 되었어 다 된줄을 마게는 년줄을 끼에 다 줘버려 그래서 니면도 배워 좋아 다 됐은 거야 또
So here it is both quoting from the scriptures and using that as reasoning. So it's here, if one, for example, has accepted to give mentally, they kind of say, I will give, even just one mouthful of food to a very common thing, one mouthful of food to another being, but then you do not follow up and actually do this. You don't engage in the act of generosity. It is said that you have created a cause to be born in the hungry spirit realm. So this comes from Sutra, from what the Buddha has taught. So it's saying from this then, if you have already committed from the depths of your heart to provide bliss, the blissful state for to the kind of peerless state of enlightenment and for all sentient beings, but then you don't follow up with the necessary efforts and striving to do that, then you are deceiving all sentient beings, isn't it? You have to kind of made a commitment that you're not going to follow up on. And so you've basically lied. You have deceived all sentient beings. It's saying, so it's asking, can you get a good rebirth out of that? Again, I was pointing out, so there's only two choices. You either get a positive rebirth or a negative rebirth. So it's saying, so if you have reneged on giving even a mouthful of food to one sentient being, and that leads to a hungry spirit realm. The logic is that if you have promised to lead all sentient beings to unsurpassable bliss, but then renege on that, then definitely there's no way you can hope for a positive rebirth. It has to be a negative rebirth.
그래, 그래서 심제 참제 증기서 진바디 증기 그다 산제 공부가 되게 증기 세대 쇼주 산제의 자주서 빵도 샤는 지기도 와. 다디치도 15주 벌면서 15주 돼야 카자 많이 봐. 셈 딩네. 돼야 지금 맨다케네 가서 딜라고레스 그 요말 소서 라왕게 토네. 더 월린터리 토네 로다. 제 켈렌스는 다디 맞아 봐 이나다. 된줄 깨왔다. 용구를 왜스다. 수고도 하고 다들
So this is kind of speaking to the intensity with which you have accepted such a promise to say to give happiness, to bring happiness to all sentient beings. It's not something that is just you paid lip service to, but you actually reflected on this and you developed a very sincere, kind of genuine desire to do so. It's kind of laid down in your mind as something which is very powerful intention, commitment, vow to provide happiness and the cause of happiness to all sentient beings. And then you don't follow up with that. You don't bother with following up with that. And then it's a real betrayal. isn't it? And so it's kind of a real betrayal of all the sentient beings that you have promised to, and therefore how can you expect a positive outcome?
어디래? 안다데 지가서 세감 직점 진내 세감 직점 진이 kel에는 맞지 봐이나 이다게 산제의 수에데 산제의 수완인상 이달 계획 계좌 말다. 된거저 기계와 산제의 수원에 디게 드리게 말 산제의 디 캥기 요래. 아니 개바 인상 나라도 땡기 요래. 나라도 신기 요 말에. 가서나 디 가서나 내조 로르다. 딜라 때문에 레드를 싸요 봐. 저부터는 민구요 봐. 로아 민구요 봐. 다 세감 제자 세 고근질에 세감 제자 증기 셈을다는 세 집아이나 딜라 때문에 저부 아니야 납첨부 연구요 봐. 디야 디 제토바이나 저부 납첨부 디 제마토바이나 소제 켈레네 제마토바이나 딜라 녀바첨부 연구요 봐티 다 산제게 레데 차시 차와 지다와 신도 ken거 요바 인자 아니 어떤데지 연구도 다서 코 내조 로도네 드레 연구도 다서 뭐저는 거 요바 얘는 산제가 소인자 디 차바 드네게 좀 말이야 다들 가서라 직된 제보 보고 조다데 말이 다들 디가서 레게 조단게 토네 주다 제비 조다 드네 제바이나 은 제보 드레 연구도 삼반내시 딜라 펜토와이나 제보 상부 드레 연구도 삼반내시 소소 당부 켈네 되네야 주와 땅와이나 야 딜레들 저부 된데 중고 도다스네 다 가서래 임바디 임바 못해 받으로다 산제 랭긴 되래 되면도 심바 가야 제요 말 임바디 임바 못해 람드스 데르와다 랑기 캠베 토네 아니 샬라데
So it must be remembered here that when we read from Sutra where it says that if we fail having promised to give one mouthful of food to another being and don't end up doing so, that creates the cause to be reborn in the hungry spirit realm. The Buddha is not making this claim as a kind of proclamation. He's saying, I have seen this to be so. This is the way it is. It's not my choice. It's not my rule. It is the way things are. This is the law of cause and effect. And so it's kind of saying, asking too, like if you analyze in the same way, you'll see there's a logical kind of cause and effect relationship there. And so it's kind of understanding too that, you know, from the kind of like the point of view of the Buddha's teachings, he's not coming from a sort of a worldly God kind of person who's issuing edicts and proclamations that this is the way things are. He's speaking purely from experience and from which he understands. It's to be understood that the subtleties of the law of cause and effect are only to be understood from the mindset of a Buddha, from that really seeing what all of the subtle kind of cause and effect issues are around any particular action. And so it's kind of saying really in relation to something as significant as the commitment of leading all sentient beings to the state of bliss in the form of enlightenment, having accepted that as a commitment and then not following up with it. One can assume, you know, the Buddha knows the details about it, but we can make the surmise that there's no way that there can be a positive outcome due to, with regard to that.
Yeah.
So that we'll stop it there. Apologize for time, not so much time for doing the actual text today.
Yeah. In a that case, you know, the Yamlet is that the legend Jetula Yabudosa, that's so Casora share Jebra. What that is that's all was Yamlet in Bayinza, what the check.
But of course, it is important, isn't it, to know how we move from simply learning, but to put how to put things into practice, and that emphasis of living the teachings, I think is extremely important anyway. So it's kind of good to have reminded ourselves of that, and that since I know you are the older students and you were aware of that anyway.
Ram doing the said 탑질로 투자 또 샤자도 세다바디 아니 또배 구속도 위에 대신에 다 같이 다외도 이제도 모두 어떻게 공부해 어떻게
So then bringing our mind to focus on the figure of Shakyamuni Buddha in the merit field, thinking of the qualities of the enlightened being, and developing an appreciation for the bodies of body, speech, and mind, etc., and developing the triple faith, pure faith, manifest faith, and the faith of conviction.
총간에 셔봐이네 다 지금 장신이가 돈 타지고 산제 공방 되다 세트베 라마 샤제싱의 공방 네바데 마주나 탐매바라 다 데레서 어디에 공방 시에잖아 다 아니 코 다지 코알 네바 중에 년주지 공방 시 아니 년중 예배 로다가랑 아니 랑게 지워들 뼈마 담아잡아 교수 삼사체 아니 되네 지가서도 지난 거 추억 간듯이 이번에 유대는 좀 뒤sam죠 말했어 가르스나 그때는 중앙에서 때는 중앙이나 유대는 두 개가 다 조단코라 매발 때는 인자 거의 지가서 때는 중앙 유대는 두 번 때는 중 그거코라 매인사 때는 중도 거 유대는 좀 맞고 다 되고서 다 되고 봐서 유대는 맞고 다가라 갈아 셈샤네 각자 가담 된걸 셈샤네 된대기 예배로 다가라 니메기 뭐저 교수 섬자다 되네 이제 다 셈제 탐제가도 산제 공부하잖아 다 두에 요바지 차티기도 가서 그 규ген 된데 처음에 주거든 산제 규gen 되게도 삼로 규gen 되게 초와이나 아니 되고 산제 공부해서 두두 요도 어다 산제 공부만 좀 타버도 두바 지 삼삼 로겠네 아니 된대게 dumba디 and tawe jingwa che jusu samsa che nena pada zawa lama rinpo cha tage jiwa pema te shuka kari chimu kuso tu chi nguru tsa tu su sunde chebala tene tambio kapsu pe sunde nipe kapsu shu sunde sube kato tedu shu sanje kuma ma to pato che su sun su samsa jiwa tene kumba shishwa.
So then reflecting on the good qualities of the enlightened being in this way, and bringing to mind ourselves that, that really I must attain that state of enlightenment. There is no other choice, really, to be able to really, truly benefit all sentient beings. This is the only possibility. I must dedicate myself to that again and again and again. And to begin with that, really, gain the sense of reality through contemplating renunciation, how all of cyclic existence is in the nature of suffering. And from that contemplation arises the lotus mandala seat on my own crown. And from recognizing that all inner and outer phenomena lack any true existence, any objective existence, but are purely dependent originations. That's the only way they can be. That's the way things really are, can only be, as arising as the dependent originations. And going through that phenomena, looking for any other way of existing, finding it not to exist and being able to abide in just that negation of the object of negation. From that arising the sun disk mandala seat on our crown. And that this then inferring that phenomena must arise in dependence, cannot be independent, shows us how cause and condition give rise to phenomena. And that means that I can progress on the path to enlightenment to benefit all sentient beings, developing that mind of enlightenment, which is manifested as the moon disk mandala seat. So we have the pre-prepared seat on our crown, and we utter the invocation prayer thrice. So glorious and precious Root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seat placed here on my crown. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestow on me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first, the figure moves. At the end of the second, arrives as our crown. And at the end of the third recitation, we feel that the Buddha is remaining with us on our crown until we attain that state of enlightenment.
아니 뒤지요나 아니 지볼라 라마투야 오모 아니 지볼라 내가 될래 아니야 거면 아니 뒤지 밥자들 전에 뒤지 밥자들 어 제토나 야고 야고 어디 제다기 어서 지삼담 어디네 지고 도마투 뒤지 밥자들 전에 아니 뒤바들 뒤바 자투 어디 공부하셨나 야고 어디 제 다드네 Then that 가서 되자 되긴 시전에 아니 rangi 그다 년조 삼다 rangi 닝데 빼마다 되체 조조 선서제 되네 돈이 또 베셔라 삼로스타네 가자 가산들 셈도 샤네 아니 되네 아니 rangi rangi 가서 되다 가자체 닝 빼마 답제 조티 때도 아니 가서 님의经过지我的念书上上下，等甚至他们这个三角空嘛，你问你嘛，到这个这里加这个什么多空，等这个对吧的，单位经过去了，就说甚至等那把这这了，那么什么去，单位应该被么子，可是什么，故说最终我说这都是，这个顺的东西这边可能说到了，等呢，俺当面告诉配，你别告诉让给。可是你个又是书，顺便告诉带着学那三节空嘛都把它结束说那搞个。
At this point, with the Guru Buddha on our crown, if we have the time, we can slip into the descending nectar light meditation as was described earlier. And this would be a very good time to do so. Then we again bring our attention to inviting the Guru down to our heart center. And from here to develop the lotus sun and moon disc mandala seed, we reflect on in turn renunciation, and then the fact that all phenomena lack any objective existence, and merely placing the mind on the mere negation of the object of negation, producing the sun disc mandala seed. And then the real determination to reflect on the benefits of the mind of enlightenment, and that determination to I will be the one to do this, to relieve all sentient beings of suffering and place them into every happiness. That determination to lead them to the state of enlightenment, and that mind of enlightenment producing the moon disc mandala seed. And then we follow that up with the invocation verse thrice again. O glorious and precious root Guru, come take your lotus and moon seed placed here on my heart. Keep me safe in your kindness, bestowing me the attainments of body, speech, and mind. At the end of the first recitation, the figure of Guru deity moves down through the crown chakra, down through the central channel. At the end of the second, arrive at the pre-prepared seat. And at the end of the third, we have the certainty that they will remain until we attain the state of enlightenment. And that's something that we rejoice in.
도배청아 다야도 업무니 마음서 다야도 업무로 때렸던 도배청아 좀 숨기 거 같겠지. 되네. 아니 잠배양 그 숭아.就是잠배양 그 숭아. 되네. 오마라바자 나디디디. 오마라바자 나디디. 오마라바자 나디디 좀 숨기 거 같겠지. 되네. 된데가 오면 예다마 해도 저 다다가다가 마셔만에 요소 스트레스 숨기 거 같겠지. 어떻게 지 공부하셔. 라기 닝게 요소 도바 투배 오버 네바티 구송 투를 위해서 봐도 매번 트는 랑게 지원에 간디가 봐도 류 지나 봐서 탐져 봤다면 왜세 트네 아니 랑게 토마 매번 사베다 간제 지금 디바 그대지만 다 간제 소주와 마저 미사로 준정와서 나선에서 로다는 수면 다 간제 소소답에 또 받아 가와 자주스면 라바다 가와 상하게 답제다 가와 나소베 다 간제 아니 지금 내가 근데지 싸줘 봐 이네요 세대원 생각만 아니 대인가만 토마 매번서 디바다 나니 마 장신 따버줘서 섬사지 안 다가니 생게 제가 소리 지금 루기 나사 샘게 동에 다가니 생게 지금 자롱 틸레 겨 근데 주변에 파 장신 따 다가니 이제 랑전전다 강사 단전 추게 단전라서 내다 단전게 바차도 잡고 봐 장통에 야도 줘서 되네 아니 지금 자롱 틸레 겨 타잖아 아니 가나 다 뉴도 산제 고마 토발라 그 치슈드 담에가 나시 미마자 담에가 나시 교통 저 바찬 가나 다자 다발 앉아 바시 차도와 야고 시우 총수 섬을 가고
So the petals of the lotus that we have prepared at the heart center fold over and are sealed at the tips by a 5-pronged white semi-vajra, and that they are surrounded by 3 mantras: the name mantra of Shakyamuni Buddha in a clockwise direction, the mantra of Manjushri in an anti-clockwise direction, and the mantra of dependent origination in a clockwise direction. From within, then, light rays begin to emanate from the figure of a Shakyamuni Buddha within, permeating through the petals and indeed pervading all of our body, mind, continuum, every atom of our existence. It predominantly this white light which is purifying all negativities and that we have accumulated since beginning this time, all their obscurations, all the infractions of the 10 are kind of abiding in the negativities of the 10 non-virtues, such as the killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct related to physical activities, and the lying, harsh speech, divisive speech, and idle gossip related to verbal activities, and the covetousness, malicious intent, and wrong view related to mental activities. All of these negativities are purified. All of the infractions to the vows, be it the Pratimoksha vows, the Bodhisattva vows, or the Tantric vows, infractions and breakages, downfalls, and so on, all are completely purified. All of the naturally occurring negativities and all those issues prescribed by the Buddha, any infractions there are completely purified. All issues to do with our ill health and disease and illness in the body are completely cured and purified. And indeed, issues to do with our mental state of health also completely rectified and purified. And all the imbalances in the 4 elements are rebalanced, and faults related to the channels, winds, and drops are rectified. And indeed, particularly, the main fault of causing our delay in attaining the state of enlightenment quickly being viewing all of phenomena with an ordinary appearance. This is completely purified and into seeing everything through pure appearance.
Rangi Shindu Tawa Lung Nilengacha, Lama Shaja Sanga Good Hedge Chicken Channel, Sosu Lude, Lama Shaja Sanga Kula Chusu, Samsacha. And Sosu Shindu Tawa Semte, Rangi Shindu Tawa Semte, Nilengacha, Lama Shaja Sanga Good Hedge Chicken Channel, Sosu Semte, Lama Shaja Sanga Kula Chusu, Samsacha. Langa Lunga Yusun, the Lama Shaja Sanga Kusuntungo, Yamari Chusu, Samsacha. And the Tewate, Tewe Tombate. Tongbe Tewate, Tewe Tombate, Teton Yusu Ishi, Jesu, Samsacha, what the Samtang, what the show, what the show, and Nasaga Netia, Negi, Tamja, Tender, Lama Shaja singing, Tabi should do Samsacha.
Then through the combination of my own most subtle wind acting as the substantial cause, together with the body of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own body is transformed into the enlightened body of the Buddha. And then through the combination of my own most subtle mind acting as the substantial cause, together with the mind of the Buddha acting as the cooperative conditions, my own mind is transformed into the enlightened mind of Buddha. That's something that I can rejoice in. It's really marvelous that this brings forth a sense of bliss which combines with the voidness, and I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness. And the place I'm in also is purified of all fault and transformed into the pure realm of an enlightened being.
Lama Shaja Sanga Kuru, and Tugale, and we said part of Member, Simjang Janda number we said part to it, and we said that and the Simjan Ranasu Tibetan, Simjan that Tamja, and the Jiggy Kasota, Jiggy Kasota. That Tamja, Lama Shaja Sanga Kusuto the War Yemeju, some such, and the Dag Nesaga net that Tamja, and then Lama Shaja Sanga Tabi should do some such. But that comes from the Simjata, Lama Shaja Sanga Kusunto the War Yemedu Cuba, the Ichi to Susu, and the Gawakari Tuba. They're to go so the Chabaka, you didn't to Tusa Yamari, talk about Parta some the Dewate, they don't budget, don't be Dewate, and the news may she just so what the commercial.
Then also now, seeing myself as a fully enlightened being, I send out countless rays of light equal in number to all the sentient beings in all the 6 realms of existence. And as the light rays touch all the sentient beings, they are completely purified of all fault and arise as fully enlightened beings. Their place also is completely purified, and these realms transform into the enlightened realms of Buddhas, of enlightened beings. And again, I can rejoice in this. This is wonderful. Today is the day in which I have fulfilled that goal of leading all sentient beings to that state of enlightenment. This brings forth a sense of rejoicing and bliss, which combines with voidness. And I abide in the, from there, I first of all consider both the sentient beings I have led to this state of enlightenment and the virtue that has fueled their progress, and myself as the agent of that virtue are completely empty of any objective existence and merely imputed by thought. This notion itself combines the bliss and voidness, and that I abide in the wisdom of non-dual bliss and voidness.
我当要不是总说什么叫他们这个对中国是但你们这人都说什么搞了我当都说搞他这人你们这人他真的他妈查说什么搞
This is something I really rejoice in. Today is the day I've led all those sentient beings to that state of enlightenment. I rejoice. This has really made this life meaningful.
他没把一切怎么了？因为样，他的人物嘛多吧，他什么当完了，像我那后来等待用一个，那听见上改建的这个，那就是说说。
Of course, this is only operating at the level of imagination now, but in my sincere dedication, I dedicate this may happen as quickly as possible, and that all the obstacles to it becoming possible may be completely removed and eradicated, and all the conducive conditions that can hurry on that process may they be established as quickly as possible as well.
So san da be sha lai so wa de me ze we de je re se de me je me o mo ja me ya ga je me so je so ga ba lo za da be sha lai so wa de. Thank you, everyone, and take care. Yeah.
Thanks, Genla. Thanks, Noel. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Okay,
Thank you, Genla. Thank you, Noel. Thank you, everybody.
Gonda
Thank
again, three more take junk song again.
Yeah.
Gonda.
No.
그래서 이 년종 톤에게는 그래서 이 행상으로 그래서 이 부글라 그래서 톤에와 그래서 이 캡착 망보도와 TV라네 그래서 아니 인터넷라 망보도와 아니 최상 아니 파마텐소 프랑스어의 부글라 아니 년종 톤에 간도슬랍 거래 한국에서는 배 갖고도 돼 항상 아니
부글에 캡라스 년내수 시작하고 뭐서 캡라 가리 캡라래.
디 콘소데 베나 콘소데 인터넷 기 속바디 당에 애플 당 마이크로소프트 당에 칸도스 인더스트리 디뇨거레 아니 콘소데 망보도 아니 구글라 아니 콘소데 콘소 삼로디 냐예 아니 아니 그런서 파마 칸도스 라코레 겐종
다 들어 연종 계제 시고고 유미 미세 얘네 딱 연종은 쓰나 지다 코아 코라